Harley-Davidson never saw this coming. Honda just unleashed a cruiser so sleek, so affordable, and so perfectly timed. It doesn't feel like competition. It feels like a takeover. This isn't a battle over chrome or features anymore. It's about survival. And Harley's balance is slipping. Stay locked in, because by the end of this video, you'll know the one reason this move could rewrite the future of cruisers forever. A quiet play, a loud result. This wasn't another brochure drop. It was a boardroom move disguised as a motorcycle. Honda took its time, mapped the gaps, and slid the Rebel 500 into exactly the space Harley had stopped defending. No chest-thumping nostalgia, no cosplay chrome, just a compact, confidence-first cruiser priced and packaged for real riders. On paper, it looks modest. In the market, it's a direct strike at Harley's weakest flank, the entry corridor where new riders should begin, and where the street program once promised a future and then vanished. Honda didn't try to outroar Harley. It muted the theatrics and maximized the usefulness. Approachable seat height, manageable weight, friendly ergonomics, and a price that doesn't require a brand faith surcharge. That combination undercuts the old formula. Image first, owner second, by making the first test ride feel easy instead of earned. And the timing wasn't accidental. With youth engagement fading in Milwaukee and international expansion stalling under the weight of heritage, Honda arrived with a product that reads like a welcome sign instead of a rite of passage. The result? A matte black wake-up call. Dealers didn't need training decks to pitch it. Riders didn't need a decoder ring to understand it. The Rebel 500 reframed entry-level from stripped and compromised to simple and sorted. It didn't try to punch above its class. It redefined the class around what people actually ride every day on real streets. That's why it feels less like a rival and more like a reset. Honda didn't chase Harley's mythology. It made the myth optional. Harley-Davidson's iconic legacy is under threat. Do you think they can bounce back from Honda's bold move with the Rebel 500? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more updates. Built for the riders, the image forgot. For decades, cruisers were designed like fortresses, heavy, tall, and intimidating. They were rolling declarations of attitude, not accessibility. And that was the problem. Harley built its world around riders who already fit the image. But what about everyone else? What about shorter riders, new riders, or anyone who didn't want to wrestle a 550-pound machine just to enjoy the weekend? Honda knew exactly who they were designing for. The Rebel 500 seat height is just under 28 inches. That single number represents an entire design philosophy. Make the cruiser experience possible for more people. Whether you're 5 feet tall or 6, the bike is easy to straddle. Whether you're new to two wheels or returning after a long hiatus, it doesn't punish you for being unsure. It invites you in. Compare that to the posture Harley's lineup imposes. High handlebars, wide reach, and heavy throttle response create a riding profile that demands confidence or discourages anyone without it, and that's the difference. The Rebel doesn't try to impress you with size. It earns your trust with comfort and control. The weight is kept just under 440 pounds, and the ergonomics are balanced rather than dramatic. There's no muscle flexing here, just thoughtful engineering. This isn't about removing soul from the ride. It's about making soul accessible. In doing so, Honda cracked a code Harley refused to acknowledge. The next generation of riders doesn't want a statement piece. They want something they can live with. And when those riders started slipping into showrooms to try the Rebel, something else surprised them. The bike didn't just feel friendly, it felt refined. Looking to gear up? We've picked the best jackets, gloves, and accessories. Check the description to see what we actually use. The motor that makes confidence easy. Underneath the tank, Honda placed a 471 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine, a configuration that tells you exactly what Honda had in mind. Practical, efficient power that doesn't overwhelm, but also doesn't disappoint. It produces just over 45 brake horsepower at 8,500 revolutions per minute and delivers more than 43 Newton-meters of torque in the mid-range, around 6,500 revolutions per minute. But what matters more than the numbers is the experience. This engine, borrowed from Honda's popular CB and NX series, is famously smooth, tractable, and low maintenance. It doesn't thump, rattle, or roar for attention. It simply delivers clean, predictable thrust when you need it. You twist the throttle, and it answers. Not with violence, but with confidence. Where Harley's design teams clung to the past, Honda embraced modular evolution. And the moment a rider leaves the stoplight on a Rebel 500, they understand. This isn't about compromising for cost. It's about choosing smart over show. And as that engine pulls away with grace, so does Honda, leaving Harley looking like it's still solving problems riders abandoned years ago. Looks like muscle, rides like silk. It only takes a glance to understand Honda knew how important style still is. The Rebel 500 looks muscular, bold, and confident, almost like it's punching above its class. The fat Dunlop tires, the low-slung stance, the matte black finishes, all signal presence. But what it doesn't do is punish you for that look, because underneath the styling is comfort, usability, and balance. This is where Harley often fumbles. In many of their models, the emphasis on look comes at the cost of practicality. Hard suspensions, cramped ergonomics, or overly forward controls make long rides an ordeal. In contrast, the Rebel 500 offers a twin-shock rear with Showa hardware and telescopic forks up front. That translates to real-world comfort, especially for city riders who face potholes, speed bumps, and uneven roads. Even details like the serrated pegs and brake lever show thought. They're not just aesthetic, they're functional, offering better grip for daily use. The LCD dash is simple, circular, and complete with speed, fuel, gear position, trip meters, and average fuel consumption. It doesn't scream luxury, but it never leaves you guessing either. It's the same story with lighting. Full LED headlamps, taillights, and turn signals that double as hazard lights give it a futuristic edge without overdoing it. You feel like you're riding something intentionally crafted, not hastily modernized. They know not everyone wants chrome. Not everyone wants loud. Some riders just want freedom, reliability, and subtle style. The Rebel delivers all three, wrapped in a body that still turns heads at the traffic light. And that's the danger for Harley, because the Rebel doesn't need to shout to get attention. It just needs to work, and it does, brilliantly. But as riders began defecting to this new machine, it wasn't just sales Harley was losing, it was its grip on the future. Because when we look at Harley's past decisions, one thing becomes clear. They saw this future coming and chose to look away. Harley's missed shot at tomorrow. In 2014, Harley-Davidson tried to reach new riders with the Street 500 and Street 750. It was a bold move, at least on paper. The bikes were smaller, cheaper, and stripped down. They were supposed to be Harley's invitation to the next generation, but they were also underpowered, poorly marketed, and built without the pride that defined Harley's core lineup. What happened next still haunts the company. Riders did not fall in love. Reviews were lukewarm. Many dealerships barely pushed them. Within a few years, Harley quietly pulled the plug. But the damage was done, not just to sales, but to Harley's reputation for adaptability. When the cruiser market desperately needed evolution, Harley retreated into its comfort zone. For analysts and former buyers, the Street Series represented Harley's last real shot at evolving downward, to serve urban commuters, new license holders, and value-conscious riders. And they missed. Worse, they learned the wrong lesson. Instead of fixing the problems, they abandoned the concept entirely. No follow-up, no global rework, no recovery strategy, just silence. And that silence created space. It gave Honda time to study what went wrong and how to avoid it. The Rebel 500 succeeded not just because of what it was, but because of what Harley failed to be. Reliable, approachable, real. Honda learned from Harley's mistake and filled the gap with precision. In a world where second chances are rare, Harley had one, and they let it rot in a showroom corner. But while Harley misread the moment, Honda understood exactly what riders wanted, and they priced it like they meant it. 6 lakh, 1 shock. A cruiser for 6 lakh rupees. That is what Honda delivered. In the Indian market, and others like it, that number changes everything. It is not just affordable, it is strategic. At that price point, the Rebel 500 does not compete with Harley. It wipes the entry-level tier off the board. Harley's least expensive bikes hover far above that figure, even before factoring in dealer markups, taxes, and accessories. And for that extra cost, riders do not get more. They get heavier frames, less refined engines, and intimidating ergonomics. Honda, on the other hand, offers sleek design, LED lighting, solid performance, and a brand new proven platform, all within the 6 lakh threshold. What makes this more painful for Harley is that they cannot counterattack. They cannot afford to. Their manufacturing model, dealer network, and supply chain do not support it. Slashing prices would collapse their margins. And what the Rebel 500 did was not just offer a great price. It exposed a structural weakness that Harley cannot patch overnight. And for young American riders, that weakness did not just feel economic, it felt cultural. Relevance versus ritual in the US, to Gen Z riders and younger millennials, the Rebel is not just another bike. It is a rejection of inherited symbolism. It is the choice to ride without the baggage. This cultural shift did not happen overnight. It has been building for years. Harley's refusal to adapt, their insistence on high displacement and heavy styling, their inability to speak to urban realities, all of it made space for something new, and Honda filled that space with discipline. Young riders today are pragmatic. They care less about flags and more about features. They want comfort, fuel efficiency, digital displays, USB ports, and bikes they can ride to work, not just bar hop on weekends. The Rebel delivers that. Harley does not. And the deeper cut? This generation grew up watching the decline of American icons. They are not surprised Harley is struggling. In fact, many see it as inevitable. The Rebel 500 cracked open Harley's armor, not with horsepower, but with relevance. And once relevance is gone, legacy cannot protect you. The shock was not limited to Harley. Industry players around the world were now on high alert, competitors in a pricing squeeze. Inside boardrooms at Kawasaki and Royal Enfield, what once looked like solid product strategies now appear dangerously fragile. The Kawasaki Eliminator 500, priced tens of thousands of rupees, higher than Honda's Rebel, suddenly feels bloated and poorly positioned. Its marginal performance advantage doesn't justify the premium when buyers are calculating every dollar or euro in an era of inflation and debt. Royal Enfield finds itself in a bind of a different kind. The Super Meteor 650 had carved out a niche as an affordable, approachable cruiser, but now it's being squeezed from both sides. It's more expensive than the Rebel, yet less refined in ride quality, engineering, and technology. Worse, consumers who once aspired to the Royal Enfield badge for prestige are now shifting their loyalty toward Honda's sleek modernism. Dealers are watching foot traffic slow for the Meteor lineup, while customers repeatedly ask for test rides on the Rebel instead. This is not just a sales slump, it's a strategic crisis. Kawasaki's pricing is under review. Royal Enfield is scrambling to add features or offer temporary rebates, and across Asia, Europe, and even in export markets like Australia, marketing departments are being told to go back to the drawing board. Because when one bike redefines value in this category, every other model looks like an overpriced compromise. And the real problem? Honda is just getting started, because behind the Rebel's competitive price lies something even more dangerous, a manufacturing advantage no other cruiser maker can match. Factories decide the fight. On paper, Harley-Davidson and Honda build motorcycles, but behind the scenes, they represent two fundamentally different industrial empires. Honda is a mass-production behemoth with decades of experience refining global supply chains, shared platforms, and cost-efficient assembly. Harley, in contrast, still builds motorcycles like it's 1978 by hand in limited batches with sky-high overhead. This difference has always been visible in pricing. But now, as Honda pushes aggressively into cruiser territory, it's becoming a fatal weakness. The Rebel 500 doesn't just win on price, it wins on consistency, parts availability, and production scaling. Honda can build these bikes in multiple countries at volume, using platform-shared components from its NX 500 and CB series. That means fewer bottlenecks, lower cost per unit, and faster inventory turnover. When demand spikes, Honda can ramp up. When inflation hits, Honda can weather it. Harley? Not so much. The cost to build even Harley's most affordable models remains disproportionately high, largely due to outdated manufacturing setups and unionized labor contracts. That's not a knock on American workers. It's a reflection of Harley's refusal to modernize its supply chain in time. Meanwhile, Honda's lean production systems and vertical integration allow it to beat Harley not just in price, but in operational resilience. And this gap is widening. In the era of unpredictable logistics, high material costs, and global competition, efficiency is king. Honda holds that crown now. And as this war shifts from dealership floors to factory lines, the battle isn't just about motorcycles anymore. It's about which company can survive 21st century manufacturing realities. But the bigger issue for Harley isn't just being outproduced. It's about where those bikes are going and who's actually buying them. Markets Harley skipped, Honda owns. For decades, Harley-Davidson focused on one type of rider, the aging American cruiser loyalist. In doing so, they overlooked the fastest-growing motorcycle markets on Earth. Countries like India, Indonesia, Vietnam, and the Philippines are now shaping the future of two-wheeled transportation. And in every one of those markets, Honda is the default name in reliability, affordability, and dealer support. The Rebel 500 isn't just a good cruiser. It's the right cruiser for cities where fuel prices, road conditions, and practical needs drive every purchase. In India, Harley made a brief, half-hearted attempt to partner with local manufacturers before pulling back. In contrast, Honda spent decades building infrastructure, service networks, and consumer trust. The result? Honda doesn't need to break into these markets. It already owns them, and with the Rebel now available at a price point that hits the upper edge of what premium middle-class consumers can afford, it lands squarely where aspirational meets accessible. Buyers in Jakarta, Mumbai, and Ho Chi Minh City aren't looking for leather vests and nostalgia. They're looking for reliable, smooth, stylish machines that don't cost a year's salary to maintain. Honda understood this. Harley did not. And now, the pricing, fuel efficiency, and riding posture of the Rebel align perfectly with local expectations, especially as riders look for lightweight cruisers they can use in traffic-heavy environments without giving up style. This isn't just market expansion, it's market replacement. And while Harley fades from memory in Asia, Honda grows even stronger. But in the Western world where Harley once dominated, something equally surprising is happening. Dealers doing the math. Walk into a Harley-Davidson dealership today, and you'll feel it, that tension in the air. The showroom floor looks full, but the buyer traffic is thin. Financing terms are longer, profit margins are thinner, and bikes are sitting unsold for months. Meanwhile, across town, Honda's big-wing dealerships are turning over Rebels faster than they can receive new shipments. The reasons are no mystery, but what no one wants to admit is that some Harley dealers are watching Honda's success with more than just concern. They're watching with envy. In private conversations, some longtime Harley dealers are asking uncomfortable questions. Should we diversify? Should we apply for big-wing licenses? The financial math doesn't lie. A Honda Rebel moves quickly. It rarely sits on the floor longer than a few weeks. It rarely needs incentives. Its maintenance costs are low, its recalls rare, and its buyers come back for upgrades. This isn't betrayal, it's survival. And for many Harley-affiliated dealerships, Honda's rise isn't just a threat, it's a lifeline they're too proud to reach for publicly. But beyond factories, showrooms, and boardrooms, something deeper was breaking. Something cultural. Cruiser culture, rewritten. There was a time when the cruiser motorcycle was synonymous with American identity. Chrome, weight, thunder, and rebellion. But for an entire new generation, that definition has just been rewritten. The Honda Rebel 500 is not just a product, it's a cultural reset. For Gen Z riders, the loudness of legacy has been replaced with the quiet confidence of practicality. No more wrestling with oversized machines. No more paying for badges that mean nothing to modern eyes. The word cool has moved east, and Harley-Davidson's stronghold on image-based biking has been breached. Across social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram, young riders are showing off their Rebels in tight urban alleys, art school parking lots, and neon-lit night rides. Instead of showcasing massive fairings and deafening pipes, these posts highlight minimalism, matte finishes, and precise proportions. Gen Z doesn't want to be seen as intimidating. They want to be understood as efficient, stylish, and agile. The Rebel 500 doesn't scream, it speaks. Harley's marketing machine is still running full throttle, pushing nostalgia, Americana, and rugged masculinity. But that language no longer resonates with riders who grew up in the post-recession world. They value function over form, independence over tradition, and most of all, they want bikes that fit their lives, not define them. In this cultural pivot, the Rebel became a vessel for a new kind of freedom. And that shift in identity didn't just stay online. It hit the factory floor in ways Harley leadership never saw coming. Pride versus paycheck on the line. Inside Harley-Davidson's oldest plants, something has shifted. And it's not just the demand curve. Workers assembling machines in Wisconsin, Missouri, and Pennsylvania are doing their jobs, but the energy is no longer the same. You can feel it in the break rooms, hear it in the silences between shifts. Morale has eroded, not because production lines have slowed, but because the mission behind the work no longer inspires. As news spreads of the Honda Rebel 500 disrupting markets globally, many Harley employees are starting to ask themselves, who are we building these bikes for? It's a quiet rebellion. No walkouts, no strikes, just questions, conversations, resentments. These are workers who've spent decades forging iron into legend, but now they see that legend losing its relevance. When management continues to push premium pricing, while sales stall and younger generations walk away from the brand entirely, it creates an emotional fracture. How long can you build symbols that people no longer believe in? Some workers, particularly those who joined during Harley's last boom 2 decades ago, remember a time when their labor meant something larger than a paycheck. It was cultural pride. Now many say it feels like manufacturing for a museum piece. The Rebel, with its stripped-down simplicity and worldwide appeal, has triggered something uncomfortable, proof that the old model is no longer the only way. And as the workforce watches their own children and neighbors choose Honda over Harley, the deeper fear becomes clear. It's not just about job security. It's about being on the wrong side of history. That sentiment hasn't gone unnoticed by the people who watch numbers for a living, from darling to doubt. In boardrooms and brokerage houses across New York, Boston, and London, analysts are beginning to whisper what no one dared say out loud a year ago. Harley-Davidson might no longer be a growth stock. The release of the Honda Rebel 500 has done more than eat into sales. It has exposed Harley's financial fragility. Investors are watching quarterly reports with growing unease as units move slower, promotional costs rise, and younger demographics continue to drift away. Harley-Davidson's business model is rooted in prestige pricing. Its margins depend on the ability to charge premium prices for machines that represent more than transportation. They represent identity. But identity is shifting, and the Rebel proves that a stylish, high-quality cruiser can be sold for nearly half the price. The cost-to-value comparison has become impossible to ignore. Worse, Harley's operational model isn't built to compete at lower price points. They don't have the scale, supply chain flexibility, or international partnerships that Honda does. The investor class is also paying attention to something more subtle but more dangerous: brand fatigue. The once powerful aura of Harley-Davidson is no longer converting into new customers. Loyalty is aging out. Enthusiasm is tapering off. And worst of all, dealers are stuck holding expensive inventory that's no longer moving. That kind of bottleneck does more than frustrate sales reps. It sends red flags up Wall Street's flagpole. When a brand begins to lose relevance faster than it can innovate, it ceases to be a growth story and becomes a liability. For Harley-Davidson shareholders, the bleeding isn't metaphorical. It's already showing up in the numbers. But the most dangerous part? The Honda Rebel isn't just draining market share. It's redrawing the entire battlefield. With Honda shaking up the cruiser market, how will Harley respond? Share your predictions in the comments below, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next in this epic battle. Not just a bike, a new baseline. From far away, it's another tidy mid-size cruiser. Up close, it's the moment the center of gravity shifted. The Rebel 500 isn't a louder chapter in the old book. It's a new table of contents. It tells riders they don't need to inherit a costume to belong, they don't have to pay extra for theater to get quality, and they don't have to wrestle weight to feel legitimate. Utility without boredom, style without apology, confidence without ceremony. That mix quietly rewires what cruiser means. For a century, the emotional shorthand of two wheels was minted in Milwaukee. Chrome, thunder, exclusivity. The Rebel answers with inclusivity, predictability, and price integrity, and it does it without sneering at the past. That's why the impact won't be measured only in units moved, but in expectations reset. Journalists, designers, and executives can already see it. The cultural solar system no longer orbits one sun. If a welcoming, well-priced, well-engineered cruiser can become the default recommendation for new and returning riders, the entire segment has to reconcile with that baseline, or be compared to it forever. So the question isn't whether the Rebel sells. It's what the industry looks like after it does. Who adapts their ergonomics and pricing to meet the new floor, who rebuilds supply chains to keep promises, who stops selling identity and starts selling fit. Harley's next move matters, but so does everyone else's. The Rebel 500 turned the bar and shield from destiny into decision, and that, more than any spec, is how eras change. That's the shift. Less ritual, more reality. And a Rebel 500 setting the new entry benchmark. Your take? Can Harley counter? Or does Honda own this lane now? Drop your pick below. Whichever gets the most comments will win. If you've seen real-world pricing or dusty floor stock near you, tell us. Like and subscribe for more straight-shooting breakdowns brands wish you'd ignore.